New Buddha-ware Dhamma Talks. Geoff Hunt presents a talk on some aspect of the Buddha's teaching.
Well, hello everyone. I thought today we'd talk about clinging. Hoping that you can still hear me. Right, good. Yes, clinging. Might seem like a rather abstract word, but actually we're clinging all the time to so much around us. We have a strong feeling that if we don't cling, that we will be at a loss. And in some ways that is true. So what is this clinging? Well, you could say that the whole of the Buddha's teachings actually reduces to the idea of clinging. He's not talking about physical clinging, of course, although that's associated with mental clinging. You think about just about how many words there are related to clinging, and then you'll get an idea of how important it is in human life and our very sense of self. Clinging, holding on. As I go through these, just think, I'll give you a minute just to think how that relates, or you would use that term in relation to some aspect of your life. So holding on. What am I holding on to? Attached. Clutching. Gripping. Sticking to. Maybe sticking to despite the odds. Grasping. Grabbing. Fixated on. Adhering to. There are lots of analogies and metaphors, of course. Sticking like a limpet on a rock. When you've been down to the seaside, I'm sure you've seen those shiny little limpets that move about on the rocks very slowly. The moment you touch them, they really hold on to the rocks. Very difficult to get off. Aren't we a little bit like that? Some things that somebody touches on it, we immediately go into defensive mode and cling like a limpet. The other end of the scale, perhaps think of a child and the mother's position or possession or relation to the child. It's known that the mother, of course, as soon as the child is born, is in a sense clinging. We wouldn't say that, just being a mother. So mothering is a form of clinging. And it's not only babies that might need some mothering. Sometimes, all of us need a bit of mothering from time to time. Even the mother needs some mothering. Because mothers have mothers, believe it or not, and they have grandmothers. We could cling to our family, our children, but of course we can also cling to possessions, our home, our car, our holiday in Mallorca. We cling to power, and some people are really, really stuck on that, literally stuck. The kick they get from having power over others. And of course, it can become very nasty, where people will actually kill in clinging to power. Just think for a moment of how reluctant dictators are to let go of power. They cling on and on and will not let go until there's violence. That's how serious clinging can be. But what exactly is clinging? If you think about it, if you try to look into it, it's not easy to say exactly what it is. We can use metaphors and analogies, such as glue. Glue. We glue to things. The glue is the sticky stuff. We can cling to power, to a belief, and to a religious belief, and that's where a lot of trouble starts as well. And at the heart of it all, very often, there is this sense of mine. What is mine? My country, my house, my family, my, I, me, mine. So it goes with, together with I, the sense of being a separate self. The clinging goes with that. So clinging has second place in the Buddha's Four Noble Truths. The first is suffering. The second is the cause of suffering, and that is craving and clinging. It's not often not noticed that the Buddha generally puts clinging together with craving. Craving is wanting something. Clinging is you've got it and you're going to hold on to it. So obviously they go together. Okay, so craving and clinging, that's the second noble truth. The third noble truth is that there is some way out of this, but it requires a bit of work and self-honesty. That is self-understanding, looking into clinging. When I am clinging or when I am craving, that I at the very least, I acknowledge it. Because a lot of your life and a lot of your decisions rotate around craving and clinging. But are we aware of that? What difference does it make if we are aware of it? And what is the opposite? It often helps to think about what is the opposite of that. What is the opposite of clinging? Well, it could be holding on lightly as opposed to strongly. It could be letting go. It could be freedom from something, freedom from whatever is in the packet, freedom from gluten. Making oneself available or making something available, being willing to share. If one shares something, then one is at least saying, okay, it's mine, but you can use it as long as I get it back. You see how much of our lives rotate around craving and clinging. It's enormous, really. It's the glue that holds everything together. And so much of our happiness and unhappiness depends on it. When we crave for something and we get it, and our clinging seems to be working, we are happy. But when we don't get what we want, or we've got what we want, but we are losing it, and we become unhappy. It's quite simple, isn't it? Become aware of that. So sometimes you can stop and say to yourself, oh, there I go again. Because now you're kind of distancing yourself from what your mind is throwing up. As opposed to just reacting, we're now aware that we're about to react. And it makes a difference. It makes a big difference because it's self-understanding. In Pali, the Buddha's language, we have the word dana, which you use often, which means making a gift, giving, could be food, could be money, which of course we have to do for the monks and the nuns because they don't, or they shouldn't handle money. And many don't not even allowed to grow food, so they're totally dependent. And that's the point, to be totally independent of clinging because you have nothing to cling to. Imagine that situation. Imagine being a monk or a nun. You have nothing. You have left your family. You've left your home. You have no food of your own. You depend for others on it, and so on. This is a world without clinging, or a world that is trying to move towards non-clinging. Not many of us could actually do that. And that is why I believe, and some others believe, that having a monastic section to a society is a valuable thing. It's like saying to the rest of us, you see, we can live without craving and clinging. We can. or at least we can ameliorate it, attenuate it, soften it. But the softening requires acknowledgement. I acknowledge that that is an issue, so I'm going to soften it. I can't stop it, maybe I can, maybe I can't. If I can't, then at least I can soften it, not make it rule my life. I'm not an automaton. I should be free in my decisions. I know that isn't easy sometimes. So the second noble truth, craving and clinging. The term there in Pali is samudaya. There's a word there, samudaya. And the word comes up so often in the Buddha's teachings. Amazingly, a lot of people miss it. They will jump from suffering to mindfulness, but there's something in the middle. And why are we being mindful? What is the importance of being mindful? We just do it because it's fashionable? No, because it's the answer to the suffering, and it's the cause of the suffering that you can understand. When I crave for something, I am in a form of suffering, however light it may be, but it can be very serious, of course. So when I am wanting something I haven't got, it could be something, it could be a person that is deceased. And that we call that grief. Grief is the pain of not being able to hold on to what one once relied upon. And it is terribly painful. Terribly painful. That is life. Now, when we know that is life and we know how life works, we're in a higher position. At least we can soften pain that is often there. We live with so much pain that we don't even notice it. It's become part of a way of life. We just expect to be miserable. Rather sad, isn't it? A lot of being happy doesn't have to do with being jolly, you know, with going on cruises, for example. One is happy for a little while and then it stops. No one is looking forward to the next cruise. There's a lot of things one can do to go into that space that's created by letting go. Letting go is creating a space. It is letting you go free of being tethered, craving and clinging. Well, what's that? Let that go. We are now creating other possibilities for ourselves. Freedom to do different things, be a different person. Sounds amazing, but it's possible. Or at least it's possible to some extent, which you choose for yourself. So the concept of mine is important here. So many things are mine, aren't they? And what I'm saying so far, I think, is that mine is okay, but it doesn't have to be so painful. And we have to see that so much of my unhappiness is actually due to craving and clinging. That is, resting on mine. What a world of difference it makes. If there is no mine, can we even conceive it? No mine. No I, me, mine. There are societies much less complex than ours in which people share almost everything, so they don't really have a concept of mine. Such societies, of course, have been blown away by the obsession with so-called development and gross national product, which is actually gross national destruction. That's another talk. So if things are changeable, if things are constantly changing, then you see we've got everything set up for us to suffer. If everything's changing, but we want to cling to something, you've got a problem there. You're clinging on to something that will change. Hence, unhappiness, suffering. Now, we don't want to make the suffering worse by dwelling on this the way this works. We want to enlighten ourselves by understanding ourselves. And that if we don't understand ourselves, we make things worse generally. Think of the person that gets angry all the time. Is that person happy? No, they're very unhappy. But they don't know how to stop being angry. They haven't even noticed that they're the one getting angry. Okay, so impermanence, things are temporary, and that's okay. How could it be different? Huh? You imagine a world in which there's no change? What sort of world would that be? It's inconceivable. But given that there's change and we can't stop it, the only thing we can do is get wise to it. Now, for us as lay people, we're not going to give up our families and our cars and the rest of it. But I've sometimes used the metaphor of the sticky note, little yellow pieces of paper usually that we can stick onto the wall or onto the notice board. But the thing about it, the beauty of it, and this is the heart of this little invention, brilliant invention, is that one can pull it off without any damage. So a sticky note, or whatever the brand name is, the sticky note, you stick it on the notice board, it serves its purpose, and when you pull it off, it doesn't damage the wall, it doesn't even damage the sticky note. It served its purpose. It's done a good job. See what I mean? So a sticky note is a kind of a very simple, maybe childish analogy of how we could approach life differently. Not asking you to forget people that you loved or something like that. But we don't have to torture ourselves with it because life is death and death is life. It's round in a circle. It's okay. That's how it is. Okay, so what practices have we got? What practices come out of this? Well, I've already mentioned one, the practice of the sticky note. The practice of developing a very speedy understanding of what is going on in you when something is going on in you, which is most of the time anyway. But the moment, for example, that you start, take the example of anger. The moment you start feeling anger, you can actually notice that starting at its very root. Now, it's the same with stickiness. When you start sticking to something, or you are stuck to it, then now the prospect of losing it is coming up. You don't have to react. You're not an automaton. You can be aware of that and say, I'm not going that way. I'm not going that way. Because it's going to hurt more. You don't want to tear the sticky note. You just pull it off gently. What I mean? I'm sure you do. So letting go, moving from reaction to response. Response is okay. Reaction is not good because it lacks awareness. But responding to what happens in life, well, you're not going to be able to go without responding. But you can go without reacting. And it doesn't require anger. It doesn't require blaming someone else. This is typically what we do. And self-pity, which again, it's so human. All of us can fall into self-pity. But we don't have to. Not if we truly understand how things work, and work not just for me, works for everybody. We're all together in this. Nearly 8 billion of us, for goodness sake, why should this be about me? There's a lot of suffering on this planet, which is much greater than anything you may have encountered this week. So move from reaction to response. Learn by allowing the mind to jump in there and see what it is trying to do. Immediately it starts doing something. Now, nobody can do this all the time, not even the greatest monk, but you can go a long way in learning to understand oneself and one's responses. And the result, when there's just a little bit of nirvana in you. Nirvana isn't one thing. Like some people think, nirvana, I've arrived at nirvana, I'm totally enlightened. Oh yeah, pull the other leg. It's a sliding scale. Every time you spot what your mind is doing and you think to yourself, uh-oh, don't really want to go that way. And you let it go. That little capsule of nirvana is touching you. And nirvana is the idea of perfect peace. But in this life, perfection is not really what we're expecting. What we can do is amelioration or attenuation, which means moving towards a state of tranquility or serenity or equanimity, all these words we use in Buddhism. All of that is perfectly possible, very perfectly possible. Why some people want to hide it from others, I don't know. And maybe it gives them a sense of superiority or something. But it's something that you can teach yourself with just a little push. So there's no need to react. For example, one form of reaction, as I mentioned, is to dislike or even hate those that appear to be taking away what is mine. Can one stop that? Can one just let go of something rather than want to blame somebody for it? You lose your job, right? Feels horrible, feels insecure. Right, now I'm clinging, and I'm going to cling because I'm losing a grip on something that I thought was solid. This week I have a job, or last week I have a job, this week I don't have a job. Wow, bang, slap in the face. That's very painful. But where's the pain? Is it in outer space? Is it in a rock? It's you. So you can be aware of it and do something about that. Okay, you've lost your job. That hurts, but it only hurts as much as you allow it to hurt. So all of this is sort of daily mindfulness. Sometimes Buddhism comes across as a very profound and esoteric enterprise. But actually, in some ways, it's very simple, and all human beings have the capacity to do it, the capacity to let go. It might be very small at the start, but the more you do it, the stronger you get in letting go. And the calmer you become. Another good word is detached. The more detached you become, not detached in the sense of abandoning someone or something, but not gluing to it. So detachment, a sense of detachment. You do meet people in life who have that sense of detachment, that whatever happens, they'll be okay. They will suffer, like we all do, but they're going to be okay with it. Because they're detached. Their mind is detached. They don't take the thoughts arising in their mind as realities. They are thoughts. They're not realities. They're thoughts. They're your thoughts. You can cling to those thoughts or you can let them go. Okay, well, I'm going to stop there. I do discuss this topic in the book. If you go to the Tipitaka, if you want to actually read teachings of the Buddha, which you needn't do, some of it comes across as very heavy. There are several suttas that are actually devoted to this idea of clinging because it's so important in the Buddha's teaching. So there's the Upadana Sutta. in the Samyutta Nikaya, which is all about clinging. So I hope at least I brought to the foreground that we human beings are all in the same boat. Craving, clinging, and suffering is part of it, but we can soften it. And it also increases the power of it, of the letting go, 100-fold. If we can do that together, we can actually support each other rather than blame each other and fight with each other. That makes things infinitely worse. Even when it's a difficult situation, it's far better to let some things go, to not speak when you don't need to speak, because one word can sometimes set off a fire. So, clinging. The opposite of clinging is not necessarily letting go entirely. It's, think of the sticky note. I'll leave you with the sticky note, okay? Thank you for listening.
New Buddha Way lets go of East and West and starts afresh in the life we have now. For more information, visit www.newbuddhaway.org.